Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tracing the pretty wild history of Bitcoin. We've got this timeline mapping it all out.
Yeah, it's quite a story. From, well, basically an idea to something that might be a global asset.
Exactly. And, one of the first things that jumps out, that pizza story.
Oh, yeah. Bitcoin Pizza Day, May 2010.
10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas. It's kind of mind-blowing now, thinking about the value.
Definitely puts things in perspective, shows just how far it's come.
So we'll go from that right up to governments maybe holding it in reserve.
Okay.
Let's get into it. Where does it properly start?
Well, the real beginning, I'd say, is October 2008. That's when the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper dropped.
Right, the blueprint.
Exactly. It laid out this radical idea, peer-to-peer electronic cash, no banks, just cryptography.
And that wasn't just theory for long, was it?
Nope. January 3rd, 2009, bang, the network goes live, the Genesis block gets mined, Bitcoin exists.
So it's out there. And then we get to that pizza transaction you mentioned.
Yeah.
May 2010. That was really the first time it had like a real-world price tag.
Pretty much, yeah. Before that, it was mostly traded among, cypherpunks and tech enthusiasts. The pizza thing made it tangible.
And then just a couple months later, July 2010, Mt. Gox launches.
Yeah.
How big a deal was that first major exchange?
Oh, huge. Mt. Gox was essential. It created a marketplace. People could actually buy and sell easily, which helped figure out what Bitcoin was worth.
Right, gave it structure and, well, a place for the community to grow, I guess.
Definitely. But also, it foreshadowed some of the risks involved, as we found out later.
We certainly did. Okay, so things are moving. Fast forward a bit. November 2013, Bitcoin hits $1,000.
Yeah.
That must have turned some heads.
For sure. That was kind of the first big wave of public interest, But then came the flip side.
You mean Mt. Gox again,
Yeah.
February 2014.
Yeah, the hack
Yep.
using, what was that, 850,000 Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Just vanished. The exchange collapsed.
Wow. That must have been a massive shock to the system. What did people take away from that?
Well, it was a brutal lesson in security. It hammered home just how vulnerable these early centralized platforms were.
So a push towards better security, safer ways to hold coins.
Absolutely. That incident really forced the industry to mature quite quickly on the security front.
Okay. And then governments start paying attention too, right?
Yeah.
China, September 2017?
Yeah, China moved in, banned initial coin offerings, ICOs, and started shutting down domestic crypto exchanges. That was the first major state-level clampdown.
But even with that happening, the price just kept climbing that year. End of 2017, it nearly hit $20,000.
It was wild, a real speculative frenzy, huge mainstream buzz, Bitcoin is digital gold, all that talk.
What goes up?
Exactly. 2018 brought the crash, the crypto winter, a long, cold period for the market, showed just how volatile this space could be.
Right. But then something interesting started happening. Institutions started sniffing around. MicroStrategy, August 2020.
Yeah, that was a big moment. Michael Saylor putting, $250 million of company money into Bitcoin?
A public company holding Bitcoin on its balance sheet. Why was that such a landmark?
It sort of legitimized Bitcoin for the corporate world, treating it not just as speculation, but as a potential treasury asset, maybe a hedge against inflation.
And then Tesla jumped into early 2021.
Right. January 2021, a $1.5 billion investment. That really poured fuel on the institutional fire.
And the price reflected that, didn't it? Over $60,000 by April 2021. Seems like mainstream acceptance was growing.
It definitely felt that way. But the regulatory story wasn't over. China came back again.
Yes, the full ban. September 2021. Mining, trading, everything.
Pretty much everything, yeah. It caused a huge shakeup, especially for miners who had to pack up and leave China.
Did that kill Bitcoin's momentum?
Not really. It caused a dip, sure, and shifted the mining landscape globally. But the network itself proved pretty resilient. Decentralization in action, I suppose.
Okay, fast forward again. A big one for accessibility. U.S. regulators finally approved spot Bitcoin ETFs, January 2024.
That was huge. BlackRock, Fidelity, all these big players getting the green light.
Made it much easier for, regular investors to get involved through their brokers.
Exactly. A familiar, regulated wrapper. No need to worry about private keys or setting up wallets if you didn't want to. Big step for mainstreaming.
And that leads us pretty close to today. We saw Bitcoin cross $100,000 in December 2024, another major psychological barrier broken.
Yeah, another big milestone.
And then, this latest news, or report rather, March 2025. The U.S. government supposedly signing an executive order to hold Bitcoin strategically.
Well, that's the report. If true, it's potentially game-changing. A major world power treating Bitcoin not just as currency or commodity, but as a strategic reserve asset.
What would that even mean? Why would they do that?
It could mean a lot of things. Diversifying national reserves, hedging against other currencies, maybe acknowledging digital assets or becoming part of the global financial plumbing. It's a massive potential signal.
So looking back, it's just an incredible arc. From a white paper and some
The
pizzas
hacks, huge price swings, regulatory battles.
to corporate treasuries, ETFs, and now maybe even national strategic reserves. It's quite the journey.
It really is. From a niche tech project to, well, something potentially much, much bigger on the world stage.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? With this pace of change and seeing institutions and maybe even governments getting seriously involved, what does the next 10 years look like for digital assets? How deep does this integration go?
That's the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it?
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for walking through this timeline with us today.